can run the mile. You can walk straight through hell with a smile.
Thought it was the flu. I had all of the classic symptoms that Thursday afternoon last spring. A fever, chills, and those body aches that squirrel up and down your spine telling you you're in for it. I took some Tylenol. When that didn't work, some ibuprofen. I didn't have time for the flu. An emergency appendectomy in December had knocked me down, and I was just back in the game. My new fitness studio needed me. I was teaching 7 classes a week and working at the front desk. My new relationship, teetering on the are we or aren't we precipice of real commitment, needed me. And I had a half marathon to run on Sunday. I didn't have time for this. I needed to kick the speed up a notch faster. It was around 10 p.m. when the pain first snaked its way up my leg, around my left knee, up my IT band, and settled in my hip with defiant certainty, forcing me to question mine. This wasn't on the flu menu. Hour by hour, the pain in my leg increased, and then there was vomiting and diarrhea. I didn't sleep. I was crying. I repeated over and over, something's not right. By morning, I couldn't walk, so I crawled into the car, and my parents drove me to Baylor Hospital. In the ER, I was tachycardic. My heart rate never fell below 150 beats per minute. I was in kidney failure and septic shock. My white blood count was sky high. It's an infection, the first doc said, looking down at me with all kinds of doctory authority. Duh, I thought. I was hopped up on enough IV pain meds to keep a heroin addict happy for a week, and I could have told myself that. Probably bacterial gastroenteritis, he said. But the pain in my leg, I said. Old muscle, I suspect. You said you're a runner, right? We'll get you on antibiotics right away. Your CTs came back okay, so you'll probably be home in a couple of days. He was pompous, and something told me wrong. But I let out my held breath. I called Greg, my is he or isn't he, and I told him it wasn't too serious and I'd be out in a day or two. I'd wanted to call him all day, but we were so new and I didn't want to burden him. I'm coming up to see you, he said. I'll be there soon. That afternoon, another doctor came to see me, mad scientist-like, running in and out of my room asking questions, and then he zoned in on my leg. Had I been out of the country? In any strange bodies of water? Did I, no judgment here, use any recreational drugs involving needles? I answered no, over and over, while the gears turned in his head. I'll be back, he said. It was then that I started asking my mom, my dad, the med student who came to study me, and pretty much anyone in the vicinity if I would still be able to run that half marathon on Sunday. There are moments in life when everything goes in slow motion, even as it's happening. I can still see it unfold in my head over and over. Doctors and nurses flooding into the ICU room. Greg coming to the doorway and getting stopped by whoever was the gatekeeper. I'm her boyfriend, I heard him say. Someone looked at me for confirmation, and I nodded, vaguely registering that I had, in the midst of chaos, just gotten an answer to a very big question. He came in, sat down, and held my hand. Someone asked me if I had a living will. Did I want extraordinary measures? I signed over power of attorney to my father, who was standing across the room. When he looked at me, the normal smile crinkles at the corners of his eyes were gone, replaced by a loose, haunted look. That scared me more than all the needles, all the pain, and the paperwork put together. It told me what no one had said to me in so many words. You could die. Someone hugged me. The chief resident and another doctor tried to stab a central line in my neck. I bit my lip and clenched my hands, and while my head was turned sideways and they held pressure on their failed attempt, an orthopedic trauma surgeon sat down in my field of vision and told me what was really wrong. Necrotizing fasciitis. I rolled the words around in my head. Bacteria, strep A, I would later learn, had found its way into my healthy body. Through a bug bite, maybe a scratch, I'll never really know. Once in my bloodstream, it found a happy place to settle in my left hip and leg and went to work, eating connective tissue, sucking up fluid from muscles, leaching nutrients from tissues, and in effect, killing the host it was trying to feed off of. If it isn't caught and treated in time, necrotizing fasciitis is always fatal. Amputations are common. They would cut me open from hip to knee. When I went under for the first time, I didn't know if I would wake up with a leg or not. I didn't know if I would wake up at all. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital. They ran 4 different kinds of antibiotics into my bloodstream. One tasted metallic, kind of like sucking on a penny. It was 9 days before I could stand at the side of my bed and transfer to a bedside commode and relieve myself in private. 6 weeks before I took a real shower instead of a sponge bath. I had 2 wound vacs to suck fluid from my open wound. First, a big one at the foot of the hospital bed, and then a little portable one that I carried around at home like a purse. 17 days before I walked across my hospital room on crutches. I had 11 surgeries. It's been almost 10 months now. I still don't know how to run. Things still hurt. I still have a ways to go. My physical therapist told me to stop thinking about rehab in days and weeks and start thinking about it in seasons. So in summer, I began to find my way back, pedaling in slow circles on an upright stationary bike. In fall, I built up tiny new muscles along my left leg where they had all been severed and sewn back together. It is now winter. I teach a few classes a week, and I can empathize in new ways when a class is a challenge for my clients because of illness or injury or lack of physical fitness. They tell me that I inspire them to try harder, which is enough to get me there on my worst days. I am working my way back to cycling, yoga, athlete. I'll get there, but it might be another season or 2 before I do. This, like so many things, takes time. I remind myself often that you don't have to be the best or get it all done on day 1, because there's time. There's plenty of time. It is another story, but 13 years ago, my younger sister was killed in a robbery. And I started to believe that you had to hurry to fit it all in, because who knows how much time you really have. But when mine almost ran out too, I learned that sometimes you gotta slow down. During those first days in the hospital, when I was lying in a bed in ICU with a wide open leg and swollen toes squished together like fat Vienna sausages, Greg handed me a card. The front of it read, "One day at a time, one step at a time, you can make it." Inside he wrote, "We'll get through this, one step at a time." And then he told me that he loved me. A lesser man with his triathlete skills might have been pedaling hard and fast in the opposite direction. But he sat by my hospital bed, and he held my hand, and he waited for me to get better. Greg, my family, my friends, they stayed with me for hours when I couldn't come home, and I was way too sick to be interesting. When I learned to walk again, and I was slower than my 96-year-old grandmother on a bad day, they matched me step for step. I'm faster now, and Greg marks my distance on his triathlete watch, cheering me each extra mile as I get stronger. And for each mile, our relationship grows stronger. My illness taught us to take time to celebrate each step of the journey, a journey I almost didn't get a chance to have. I'm tired. But I'm happy too. The challenges are good, the victories are sweet, and there is, in fact, time to get it all done. And if I ever get impatient, get in too much of a hurry, and I need a reminder, I always got one with me. It's that scar threaded into my skin. The straight line runs like a seam from my hip to my knee, curving just at the top, and it's still red in places. But it ever so slowly turns pale, shining against my skin like silver.